Kristina Parro, author of Lucky, a novel which is coming soon. Today I wanted to read you the prologue of my novel. I think that the prologue really sets the tone for the entire novel. Lucky was written as a creative endeavor during the pandemic. I started it in September and I finished it in April. And I was an essential healthcare worker during the pandemic. So I went through a lot of feelings this past year. I really kind of restructured my view on what the world is like, to be completely honest. And I think that you can begin to see that through my novel. So I'm really excited for you all to read it on June 10th. It's coming very soon. So without further ado, I'll get started with the prologue. The date was February 24th, 2020, a Monday. I remember it like it was yesterday. The bright city lights ricocheted off the Edens Expressway, blinding me. My Uber headed south downtown. Up front, the driver adjusted a dial and a deep voice filled the back seat. "The Dow drops another 1,000 points, the radio host boomed, as fears about the novel coronavirus grow. As I peered out the rain-streaked window, I saw a blurry image that has cemented itself in my memory. The driver next to us wore a bright yellow, full-body hazard suit and was huddled behind the steering wheel. He sat alone in his car, yet had donned elbow-length rubber gloves and wore a face shield and a mask. What is this? I remember thinking. The start of a dystopian horror movie? Life's funny like that. I was an essential healthcare worker who worked throughout the pandemic without receiving sick time or hazard pay. People literally sang our praises in the streets. Then turned a blind eye as we were stabbed in the back. Along the way, I forgot my value. My beloved patients caught the virus one by one. Some died, others were forever changed. Then, I changed too. I lost my spark. I felt trapped, like my life was but a marathon on a giant wheel in the hamster cage that epitomized the tragic reality of our society. I watched as some ran that wheel round and round until they died. I watched as others fell off the wheel and never recovered. Maybe some people are just destined for a life at the bottom. Others, however, are lucky. Barring no pandemics, pay cuts, layoffs, freak weather accidents, or raging forest fires, they may be able to retire and spend their glory years shelling out $20,000 a month to live in a luxury assisted living building. Take a moment to imagine it with me. The year is 2069. You're sure of it. That speech therapist who came to your room this morning asked you for the year at least 20 times. You are elderly now and in the midst of another pandemic. Your family recently moved you into Thousand Oaks Senior Living. You heard your granddaughter call your new home the fancy cruise ship. The term, quite honestly, suits it well. Rolling your walker down the padded hallway, you trepidly make your way towards the dining room, barely taking notice of the glistening chandeliers and extravagant art prints. The brakes squeal as you walk distracting you. It's lunchtime, and your stomach feels hollow. In the dining room, you park your walker by locking the brakes. Taking care not to let gravity win out, you slowly lower yourself into a chair. If you fell, you'd be sent to the hospital. Again. Going to the hospital is always stressful. Despite working till you were 75 years old and paying extra for the good health insurance, your hospital sent an enormous bill after your last visit. The next day, you got a notice from the cruise ship's management. Rent is going up next month, 5%. Again. Wondering, worriedly, you think, how could my dwindling savings continue to pay the ever-increasing cost of living for the rest of my time on Earth? Back in the dining room, you see 3 decrepit acquaintances tucked under the lunch table with you. 4 forgottens forming a despondent circle. The waiter delivers your meal, turkey pot pie and jello. Again. You complain amongst yourselves about the meal. So much for the gourmet chef we're paying for, you say, rising a small laugh from one of the others. Laugh is generous. The sound was more of a chortle, but regardless, any sound of joy is refreshing these days. Meals tend to be melancholy. Because of the pandemic, the cruise ship isn't allowing any visitors. You haven't seen your family in 3 months. The forgottens are depressed. The pandemic is killing them. 4 others died just this past week. You hear yourself think, maybe it's the isolation that's killing them. At the table, talk tends to focus on the weather. It was the safest thing to talk about. Gourmet. Joe, a retired social worker and veteran, grumbles. His entire left side droops following that stroke he had last month. You notice liquid dribbling out of the side of his mouth as he speaks. Humph! The sun is shining real bright out there today, Veronica says. The forgottens look out the window and nod their heads. Not you, though. You aren't focused on the table conversation anymore. You are lost in your daydream about this afternoon's main event. Bingo. Later that day, Mary, the director of activities, will sit in the hallway next to the bingo generator. Her voice will boom directly into your hearing aids as she says, I-21, B8, B5. Holographs of letters and numbers will dance across the way as you try to manage 3 bingo cards from the lawn chair at the entryway of your 1-bedroom apartment. You remember the rush of adrenaline that coursed through your body that first time you yelled bingo. The prize wasn't memorable, but suddenly you find yourself chasing the thrill of winning, waking up each morning already thinking towards 3 p.m. Bingo gives your daily life a little purpose. Did that life seem bleak? Don't despair. Some are even luckier. A select few find a way to beat the system and win the game. Winning this game gives you the freedom to live your life on your own terms. A fast pass towards Happiness House. The final hurdle before making it to Utopia. Where better to beat the system than the United States of America? Many of us can trace our family's history back to when they arrived in this country. Each immigrant made the brave journey in search of the glistening opportunity the land of liberty provides. It has become modern folklore. Your own chance at the American dream. The American dream is so appealing because it offers a recipe of sorts. A clear, fair path that allows anyone the opportunity to unlock the doors to a happy life. I read the stories. I learned from the good examples around me. I knew what to do. Bad things happen to bad people. Good things happen to good people. I meandered down the path which I was led. towards goodness and happiness. Society taught me, hell, some would even say it told me, if I lived by their rules, their reality, I would find the happiness I sought. Happiness was all I ever wanted. But I live in a society dominated by social Darwinism, in which the dogma is feast or be feasted on. Here, almost everything has been commoditized in pursuit of limitless growth. Here, your value as a person is directly correlated with how you contribute to the growth of your country's gross domestic product. Fun fact, the industry that makes up Wall Street, finance, insurance, and real estate, accounted for 1/5 of the total economy, making it the largest industry by contribution to GDP, according to a 2019 report from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. At the end of the path society told me to follow, in pursuit of the goals I had been coached to strive for, I didn't find happiness. Instead, I found a cage and a hamster wheel. Then I found myself thrust into a pandemic, working in one of its most devastating hotspots. Like it had been dropped into the sea, my hamster cage started filling with salty water. I saw 2 choices. I could run or I could fall. I chose to run. I ran away on that wheel, terrified to go into work each day, yet feeling as if I had no other choice. Sometimes it was easier to imagine I was living the life of someone else. How easy life must be, I thought as the coronavirus ravaged my nursing home. For someone who has the money and power to make things happen. Someone who can do or be anything she ever wanted. That girl isn't caged in by anything. She had won the game of life. I wish I were that lucky, I cried like a baby going home in my car. By this time, water was gushing into my hamster cage. I was drowning in my own tears. Furiously, I searched for the escape hatch. There it was, shining in the murky water in front of me, shimmering and gold. An escape route, a Hail Mary play. My head emerged. I gasped a deep breath in, then plunged back under the water, guided by the light. I made it to the hatch, but found that it was locked. I didn't have the key. I peered through the keyhole, and by God, I was able to read the story. Here's what they don't tell you, fellow hamsters. That story is a tragedy too. It seems that after escaping the cage trapping us mere mortals, there's another game. The end game is called the pursuit of happiness. To outsiders, it seems to be set on easy mode. This game, however, is more treacherous. There are more sharks and stormier seas. As the story begins, the sharks are obvious, with their pointed fins cutting slowly through the water. Later, they may be in various forms and wearing disguise. Beware. A favorite author of mine is quoted, "All stories, if you follow them for long enough, end in tragedy. There's no true storyteller who would tell you otherwise." That may be true. Either way, time teaches us some simple lessons. Drama imitates life, and stories repeat. In each, you can find 3 paradoxical characters who cyclically and inevitably experience a tragic ending. The tragedy of the drama itself, the persecutor, the rescuer, the victim. The tragedy of humankind, individual liberties, human nature, an earth with finite resources. The tragedy of the universe, time, ultimate purpose, humankind. Lucky is a story much like any other. It's fiction, nothing more. Folklore, like the book's inspiration. Some details are true, others aren't, but the details never were what was important. Stories are so much more than their details. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Lucky is my story, our stories. Each of our stories is one and the same. A drop of rain becomes the sea. The story becomes the universe. I am but a narrator who discovered she can be the author and the illustrator of her own story. I am but a woman who realized that reality is made up of the constructs of her own belief. It turns out that we live in an incorporeal world in which you are what you believe. There's so much information out there, you might say. How can I know what to believe? Never in history has knowledge been so splintered, yet so accessible. Humankind has evolved in such a way that all our answers are literally a click away. Life, then, is about asking the right questions. Reality, it turns out, is not black and white. The paths society guides us down may not lead us down the road to happiness. Paradoxically, all stories might not end in tragedy. Life can sometimes feel like you're swinging on an old rope swing, with your hair flying in the wind as you bob back and forth between the lakes of opposites, of good and right, and bad and wrong. But maybe good, bad, right, and wrong are not ideas that should be analyzed amongst each other, rather in accordance with a bigger picture. Good and bad might not be opposites at all. Maybe the seemingly dissonant back and forth between these two forces can lead us towards finding our story's true purpose. Over time, we take different roles in the different stories around us. Take note of how good can swiftly become evil. Power, wealth, success, hell, even love, has the power to corrupt. The key, then, to true happiness may lie right around life's golden equilibrium, an area of transcendent, harmonious balance. Lucky depicts two quintessential accounts of the American dream, juxtaposed tales of glitter and tragedy. One is the story of an eccentric heiress. The other is the story of an international superstar. Both depict a mercurial rise, then the crater-sized wakes of destruction that seem to inevitably get left behind. Their stories are but a backdrop to my discoveries. See, the pandemic changed me. Then I needed to find myself again. As I peered through the keyhole, I was led, as if on a celestial journey, through history, philosophy, mythology, music, math, and time. Trying to find order in the chaos, I studied the deep resonance of all the stories that came before me. If you're curious enough, it seems you can find the answers in the depths of anything you're interested in. Equipped with my new knowledge, I was able to rewrite my own story in a way you could never imagine. But we'll save my story for another time. The story you're about to read is exciting enough. 2020 was a year of discovery for us all. During its ups and downs, I drew a seemingly obvious conclusion. Success and wealth aren't the fairy tales they are made out to be. Our world isn't what it's made out to be. From my journey, this is what I give you. Reality is the ocean. Our laws are the ship. Many have never left the ship, jumped into the sea. Jump in with me. Learn more in Lucky, coming June 10th. It's available for pre-order on Amazon for the ebook version. It will also be available on Amazon for the paperback version, which includes 21 black and white illustrations. There's a hardcover version with 21 full color illustrations. You can buy that on my website, which is KristinaParro.com. Click shop and you will be taken to my Shopify and you can buy my hardcover version there. Thanks so much for your support. If you made it this far, really thank you. I think that if you made it this far, you'll really like my book. It's a very interesting story. I'm not just saying that. Like, the reason that I started writing this book in the first place was because it was such an interesting story. And that story originally I'm talking about was the story of Rebekah Harkness, who's the eccentric heiress. And I've kind of juxtaposed her story against the story of a pop star who is having a bit of an existential crisis. She kind of reaches the pinnacle of fame and success and fortune, and at the top, she realizes that she's still not happy. Later in the book, I talk about this, but when you're chasing success, and or chasing something that is external in general, you're never going to be fully satisfied. And we've seen that in stories throughout the ages, from myths to stories about real people. It's a really crazy thing. So if you want to know more about this incredible journey that I've gone on over the past, 8 months, please pre-order my book. Follow me on Instagram, Kristina Parro Writes. And go to my website and add your email to be subscribed to any further updates about my book, myself, or my new company, which is called Logos LLC. And Logos is going to, I believe, specialize in entertaining and enlightening adult fiction. Thanks again for watching. If you liked my video, please like it below and subscribe to my channel for more updates about Lucky and other endeavors in the future.